There has been a ton of negativity surrounding 49ers quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo lately. The first thing that came out was Garoppolo threw 5 interceptions in a row at practice. A week later, he made his preseason debut against the Broncos, going 1 of 6 for no yards and an interception. I'm here to tell you why these reports and preseason stats have been blown out of proportion, and Garoppolo will be fine in 2019. Garoppolo was drafted in the late second round of the 2014 NFL Draft by the New England Patriots. At the time, Tom Brady was 37 years old, and it seemed like he was going to have a shot to be the heir apparent to Tom Brady in the next couple of years. As we now know, Tom Brady is still playing and doesn't seem to be thinking of retirement even at 42 years old. The only time Garoppolo had a chance in New England is when Tom Brady served his 4-game suspension in 2016 for the deflated balls incident. In 2016, he started the season opener on Sunday Night Football, throwing for 264 yards and a touchdown in a win at Arizona for his first career start. His second career start was also a win against the Miami Dolphins, throwing for 232 yards and 3 touchdowns. Garoppolo had no interceptions in his first 2 starts, but the bad news is that he injured his shoulder against Miami, so therefore he was no longer able to start in Tom Brady's absence. He made a few more appearances in blowout wins or to take knees, but he had no competitive game action after the first 2 weeks of 2016. During the 2017 season, the Patriots traded Garoppolo to the 0-8 49ers, who were desperate to acquire a quarterback. The Niners started the season with Brian Hoyer and then CJ Beathard, but neither of those guys played well enough, and the Niners knew an upgrade needed to be made. It's been reported that Bill Belichick was against trading Garoppolo, but he had to because owner Robert Kraft wanted it to be done. At the time, it looked like the Pats were going to acquire the 33rd overall pick, thinking the Niners would have the worst record in football. Instead, the Niners ended up going 6-10 and turned that pick into number 43 overall. But anyway, let's get back into Garoppolo and the way he played. When Garoppolo was acquired, the thinking was that he played right away, or at worst, right after the Week 11 bye. But that's not the way the Niners went about it. CJ Beathard started 3 games while Garoppolo sat the bench, but a fourth quarter injury to Beathard in Week 12 versus Seattle allowed Garoppolo to enter the game. When Beathard went down, some of the Niners crowd actually started cheering because they knew Garoppolo would enter the game. Some Niners players and coaches took exception to that, but we all know it was for Jimmy, not because of the injury. Garoppolo came in for Beathard late in the fourth quarter, and as time expired, threw a 10-yard touchdown. It was much more than just a 10-yard touchdown that made a 24-6 loss look better than it actually was. It was much more than that. It offered 49ers fans hope for the first time since Colin Kaepernick was playing very good football, which was in 2014. Those fans went through 3 years of an underperforming Kaepernick, Blaine Gabbert, Brian Hoyer, and then CJ Beathard. These fans needed a quarterback to save this franchise, and that's exactly what happened at the end of 2017. Garoppolo ended up going 5-0 as a starter to bring the 1-10 Niners out of the basement and finish at 6-10. The more impressive thing about Garoppolo's 5-0 stretch as a starter is that his best receiver at the time was Marquise Goodwin. He was throwing to guys like Trent Taylor, Kendrick Bourne, Garrett Selleck, Louis Murphy, Kyle Juszczyk, and of course George Kittle was there, but he was still backing up Garrett Selleck at the time. Here were his 2017 stats in the games he started. At Chicago, 26 for 37, 293 yards and an interception. At Houston, 20 for 33, 334 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Versus Tennessee, 31 for 43, 381 yards and 1 touchdown. Versus Jacksonville, 21 for 30, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, which was against the best defense in football that year. And at the LA Rams, 20 for 33, 292 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Garoppolo showed that he could make a mental mistake here and there, but overall there was a lot to like. His quick release, pocket awareness, good ball placement, the ability to make plays outside the pocket and on the run, and honestly, he just made the players around him better. Garoppolo kept everyone involved by spreading the ball to all receivers, and him being at quarterback opened up room for the run game as well. After the 2017 season was over, the Niners had optimism all around the organization, thinking they found their quarterback of the future. In the 2017 offseason, the Niners locked up Garoppolo long-term, giving him a massive 5-year, $137 million contract. As expected, the contract was mocked by some people because they felt Garoppolo had not proved enough to make that kind of money. But honestly, what were the Niners supposed to do? Trade a second round pick for a guy and let him walk after 5 starts? Come on now, let's be realistic. If the Niners did not pay him, another team would, and that's just the truth. Now, if for some reason Garoppolo has a horrific 2019 season, the Niners can get out of that contract with only $4 million in dead cap space, so it's not all that bad. To start 2018, there were some high expectations surrounding the 49ers. The roster wasn't all that great, but Garoppolo entered the year with a 7-0 record as a starter, so people figured they could win 7 or 8 games with the improvement at quarterback. In week 1 of 2018, the Niners lost at Minnesota and Garoppolo struggled. He did throw for 261 yards, but his 3 interceptions really hurt them in an 8-point loss. Week 2 at home against Detroit, Garoppolo looked a lot better, throwing for 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 206 passing yards. And the Niners won that game as well, making them 1-1 on the season. Week 3 ended up being Garoppolo's last start, but he was on his way to having a great game. His stats were 251 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions against the Chiefs. He did unfortunately go down in the 4th quarter with a torn ACL, putting an end to his season. But before we come to a conclusion that the guy stinks, let's look at his overall stats as a starter. In his 10 games as a starter, here's what Jimmy G did on a per game basis. 275.6 passing yards per game, that would have ranked top 10 in the NFL last season. A 65.7 completion percentage, 1.5 touchdown passes per game, 0.8 interceptions per game, along with an 8-2 overall record. So is Garoppolo elite? No, not yet. It's honestly too early to judge. It's weird because he's already 27 years old, and guys that are 4 to 6 years younger already have more NFL starts, but that's just the irony of the situation. The Niners are not doomed or idiotic for giving him that big contract, and if he finally has a healthy season where he can play all 16 games, he's going to show how good he really is. I personally am excited to see what Garoppolo can do for a full season, so before you mock him over practice or preseason stats, you might end up eating your words in the near future. That'll be it for this video. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you next time.